Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, and a very pleasant good afternoon to all of you. I'm Dr. Jawad Hashim from the College of Medicine and Health Sciences, and it's my pleasure to conduct this workshop on graphs and charts using Excel. I'm going to wait maybe a minute or two to have more participants join, or we'll just start slowly. I just want to know if you guys can hear me well. Is my voice clear? You can let me know in the chat messaging. Can you hear me okay? Okay, thank you, Sonado. Great. Just out of curiosity, I would like to know if anyone from the College of Medicine is here. That would be an interest. Yeah. Yes. Okay. 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 We'll get going, and we have some exciting material to cover, and I'm sure you will enjoy this workshop. But also, I hope you will find it useful. So Excel, as you know, is a very popular program for data analysis, but it also has a graphing feature, and it is used a lot to make charts and graphs for research papers, articles, theses, presentations, you name it, and of course for business users also. I've divided my presentation into two parts. So first part, we'll look at some sample figures, some graphs and charts that have been published in research. We'll see how we can improve them. Is there some scope for making changes? What are some best practices? And then we'll take a deep dive into Microsoft Excel's graphing features. And then hopefully I can end up with a live demonstration. So here's I would say a nice clear graph, and this is from my paper actually. So it is a paper on the epidemiology of type 2 diabetes, and you can see that the trends are clear. It's obvious that Western Europe has higher rates than South Asia. The global average is somewhere in the middle. There is no cluttering grid lines. The global forecast is clear. It shows a range of forecast. Maybe the color has been used, but sparingly. And I am happy to say that this paper was published just a couple of years ago, but it has been cited already about 500 times. So is the figure important in the high citation rate? I'd like to say yes. I think having a clear figure that shows a single convincing message is important in presenting your research, and it can make a difference. Here's another paper that I wrote with colleagues, and then this one is on HIV epidemiology of AIDS and HIV, and it shows that the rates are rising of new cases in Europe and North America. So again, the top part has a clear, simple message without any clutter, and the axes are labeled clearly. And it also shows comparison with the global average, which is decreasing. So again, you should have charts that show a single, clear, convincing message that is easy for the reader to understand, and just at a quick glance without having to spend too much time deciphering what the chart is trying to tell you. Here is a graph from one of the top ranking journals in life sciences, and it is a graph showing mosquitoes in 3 different categories. And I'm not going to go into the detail, but you can see that the graph is clear. It has no grid lines. The labels are clear, and there's no extra stuff that is distracting. This is what we call a 100% stacked bar chart, because all the 3 bars are moving up to 100%. One thing I'd like you to notice is that there is a slight misalignment of the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. So this is most likely not made in Excel, and it is possibly drawn in graphics programs such as Adobe Illustrator, which is not recommended. But people are doing it. They're spending a lot of time in making graphs using basic graphics programs instead of Excel. This is the full figure, and you can see that this was the panel that I was showing you. You can see that, and this is just one of the several figures in this paper. So this is a big paper, and it has a lot of details. Just this single figure has several panels, including the stacked bar chart, and what are called violin plots. Violin plots are not possible in Excel, so you'd have to use some other graphing program. But you can see a lot of work goes in just making one figure in life sciences. Here's another program another chart, a multi-panel chart figure with several charts. I don't really like some of the panels, such as panel D. It's really hard to see what's going on there, what are the trends. But again, this got published in a top ranking journal. You can make this in Excel using line chart, lines and text boxes, and a jitter dot plot, which is not possible, unfortunately, in Excel as of now. So you need another specialized program for that. This is, I think, a better chart. It is clear and it has a nice trend-like pattern. And it is actually can be made from a scatter chart in Excel with error bars and a vertical line, which has been added to the chart. And it's a nice reference line. So these charts, this chart is clear. It doesn't have any grid lines. It shows a nice trend. It's easy to read, and it has a reference line. Here's another chart that you could say could be improved upon. And if I can see, I can make it interactive. Any comments on how you would improve this chart? And you can type it in the message box. What would you do differently in making this chart? Resolution, yes, good. So this was, it's a bit fuzzy or blurry. So the scanning and the resolution could be better. Anybody else? The units, we really don't know the units, I guess, as part of the experimental protocol. And you can notice that it is a log scale. I would change the color of the line. It's too red for and especially the regression equation and the regression coefficient doesn't need to be in red. Similarly, this bar chart in the same paper has red bars, somewhat excessively prominent. I think you could make it light gray without changing the message. It's another paper with graphs comparing sports performance in elite soccer players. And you can see the graph has error bars and asterisk signs comparing statistical significance. Again, a multi-panel chart. This can be made in Excel. You can see some grouping without using color, but shading. So this allows people to see the groups of experimental subjects. Okay, here's another multi-panel chart with the different figures. One thing I would, I would do to improve this would be to avoid using the 3D effect. You can see the 3D effect on the bars. Probably not a good idea. It doesn't add much. And then again, also the color scheme could be better. So a break. Message is keep your hopes high and keep looking up, but don't get your ambition down. Here's another graph, again, multi-panel. I like this one because it's using color in consistent and a deliberate fashion. So you can see that certain colors are matching across the bar charts, and it helps you to compare the figure. And also it has clear graphs without any distracting grid lines. The axes have been labeled. And the statistical significance has also been labeled. The error bars are also there. So what would you do to improve this chart? Any comments? Okay, we'll take some of those questions at the end. That's a good question, Zubeda. Any comments on how you would improve this chart? I guess we'll go over some more charts, then you can have more comments. This is another chart that I made and from Excel. This is a chart showing COVID containment measures and how effective they were. And you can see that at the bottom, it's like a forest plot showing decrease and increase in new cases. And you can see just at a glance that certain measures are more effective in decreasing new cases. And another chart that I made in Excel, this is multi-panel, and it has what are called best fit lines. These lines, kind of follow the pattern of dots. So it shows the trend better than just having the dots alone. So you can do quite a lot in Excel. Here's a table. You can present your data as a table, and you can see the difference. It's hard to tell the patterns. It's hard to tell which group is having higher numbers just with a glance. You really have to dig down, and sometimes it's hard to tell some subtle patterns in a table. So I would say this is a missed opportunity. You could have made a nice graph from this table which would have a much bigger impact. And you can see here, this is a survey that of UAE University students showing that anger and worry are related to problematic smartphone use. So I hope this will send maybe a message to some of our students about smartphone use. Here's another table that could have been made a graph. This is a table that, was with the survey. So although, it may be a qualitative study, but if you have enough sample size, you can at least show which of these factors are more important than others using a simple bar graph.
Your presentations are individual?
Yep.
Okay.
Good
Okay, we'll take a visual break. This is some slides from a vacation in Indonesia. So I hope you get a chance to do a conference in Indonesia. It's a nice place to visit, and this was the hotel that I stayed at. There were other conference attendees from other parts of the world. It was a nice place to interact and meet people. Okay, so just a reminder that the aim of higher education is not just getting your knowledge and skills in your area, subject area, but you should also have some design skills. So all of you should strive to improve the aesthetics of your work. So it's not just simply presentation, but it should be well designed with good layout, color choice, and new combinations. And you should pay attention to details. So, I showed you that graph that had a misaligned vertical and horizontal axes. Should try to avoid that. Zoom into your work, zoom out, and see if try to avoid any kind of errors, mistakes, or anomalies that people would look at and catch. So on that note, I'm just going to make this again a bit interactive. This is a sample graph. Of course, it's not published, but it's something I made just for this workshop. Can you point out the mistake or the error that has been made in this graph? And again, if you can type your answers in the chat message box. So what do you think? No bio, I'm not sure what that means. Units on X and Y axis, that's good. Something more bigger than that. The X axis doesn't need units, but the Y axis should have units, yes. Look closely at the Y axis. Legend entitled "Too much spaces between bars." No, it's not too much. It's nicely clustered and grouped. The range of axes, yes. What do you mean by that? What's wrong with the Y-axis? It starts at 2. Yes, it should start at 0. Very, very good. This is an important rule because it exaggerates the differences between the bars. So if you're trying to exaggerate the differences between bars by using a non-zero axis, many of the peer reviewers will object to that. Sometimes you can break these rules, but most of the time it will not pass. What do you think of this graph? Any problems? Missing percentages, so numbers are missing, yes. Legend colors are very small. Yeah, it's hard to link a percentage. Yes, Khalid, very good. Here's what I think. I think we probably should avoid pie charts altogether in research. They certainly have a use in lay press, like in newspaper articles. But in research articles, pie charts are better avoided. It's better to use bar charts to show each category for comparison. And certain pie charts can be misleading and based on how they are placed. What about this one? What do you think is the problem with this chart? Any issues? 3D, very good, Sanabil. You're yes, avoid 3D in your charts. 3D, it's difficult to compare the peaks, so it can be misleading. And the more 3D effect there is, the more misleading it can be. And people use it deliberately in magazines and newspapers to mislead people. So definitely not recommended in research articles. So your graphs should all be 2D, two-dimensional. What about this one? Stacked, very good copy, and it's stacking. You should not stack bars; they should be side by side. So this is not recommended. It's hard to tell and compare the relationship. Very good, excellent. What about this one? This one doesn't have stacked bars. The bars are side by side, so that's okay. Legends, yeah. Generally, you need to avoid angle text. So on the x-axis, on the horizontal axis, the categories are in angle text. It's hard to read. There's no reason to make it angled here. There's enough space to make it horizontal. What about this one? Too many colors. Excellent. Very good. And too many bars. You know, it's just hard to make out. It's just so much noise here. You know, I would reduce the number of colors, maybe use different shades of blue and reduce the number of bars. Yes, excellent. What about this one? Somebody mentioned legend here. It has the legend, but I would say avoid using the legend. So you should not have legends in your charts. Rather, you should label the different bars. And you can use data labels to label each bar. That's more easier to read rather than referring back, you know, which the green bar is, you know, series 6 versus the blue bar is series 5. And, you know, they have different shades of blue. So it can be difficult to keep going back and forth. And so it's better to have text boxes, labels placed close to where you want to point to it. So it's easy to read without having to refer to a legend. All right, we've done the first part. We've seen some examples of research publications with graphs and charts, and we've seen some things to avoid. So now we will switch to some of the features in Microsoft Graph. So this is, you know, a typical Microsoft Excel graph. If you just select your data and click Insert Graph, like a box plot, or you know, or a scatter plot, and you can see that the default settings, it's very not optimal. Also, you know, the chart has plotted individual data points. So the key message here is avoid using Excel. Instead, you know, if you really want to use Excel, you would have to use pivot chart, which allows you to summarize data and explore complicated data. This is something I've tried using, but I find it not intuitive. So the big tip for this is use Microsoft Word instead of Excel to make graphs and charts for your research papers. And Word is much simpler, gives you the same amount of control, and the background, the graphing engine, the way the graphs look, it's the same in Excel and Word. So they share the same Microsoft graphing software in behind the scenes. And you know, you click on Insert and then click on Chart. And you'll get this pop-up dialog box, which shows all the different chart types that are available. And commonly used chart types in that I use are column, line, bar, and scatter. So these are the 4 types. That the rest have, I think, more applications in business and other fields. And generally, I use the first option, which is the clustered column or clustered chart. Of course, we want to avoid using the stacked bar, but sometimes, you know, I do use the 100% stacked bar. For example, in Likert scales, and one of the first graphs that I showed with the mosquitoes, that was a 100% stacked bar chart. The good thing about Word is it puts a sample graph, and it also even gives you some sample data. So you don't get a blank chart, and you can just change the numbers. For example, you could copy numbers from your statistical program, such as SPSS, and into this, and it opens up this Excel-like window. So you can just type in your numbers. And if you choose a scatter plot, this is how it would look. You get, 2 columns, X values, Y values, and you can just change the numbers, type them in, and you're all set. This is a 100% stacked bar chart. Again, as I said, it's useful to display category distribution, Likert scales in surveys. So, those, questionnaires, items with, strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. So if when you open a chart in Word, you get 2 new tabs on the ribbon, the chart design tab and the format tab next to it. So the chart design tab allows you to add elements to a chart like axis titles. And then the format tab allows you to change the look of or the format of the chart. So you can, change the colors, shading, line colors, etc. First, you have to select which item you want to change. For example, the chart area or the chart title. And then, you would then click on different buttons in this ribbon to change the settings. Also available in the chart design tab is the select data. If you clicked on select data, it opens up your data as well as this select data source dialog box. I don't really use this much. I prefer to drag the lower right corner of the selection in this spreadsheet to change the data that is displayed. But sometimes if it's completely messed up, I just start all over again. I just delete the chart and re-enter the data, creating a fresh chart. But you can add or remove series, just play around with this. It's not very intuitive, but once you get the hang of it, you can use it to kind of hide one series or one category. What I'd like to do is to double click in any part of the chart, and on the right side, this panel opens in Microsoft Word called the task pane, and it shows like different options you can choose to format each element. So here I've selected the entire chart, and or rather I've selected the x-axis with the percentages, the horizontal axis, and it's giving me some options on the right side to change the x-axis. So that's what I prefer. Word, and I've enlarged this here. So you can see, you can choose different axis options. You can select which part of the chart, or you can just double click the part of the chart you want to modify, and the panel or the task pane on the right side changes with that selection. In particular, you can change the color of a line, and you can change the color of shading. So in the bars, the shading is designated by fill. Some important options in the format axis, like the vertical axis or the horizontal axis. What I do is select the maximum axis value and values in reverse order. For some reason, if you leave it as default, the categories are in reverse order from what you have entered. So the one at the top in the data table is displayed at the bottom in the graph. So you have to click these two to get this right. And then I'd also changed the major units option. This is the one that displays the the labels on the axis. So if you leave it default, there are too many labels on the axis. So if you have an axis going from 0 to 100, you might have like every 5 units, there's a label. So the axis would be labeled 0, 5, 10, 15, so on. So you want to reduce that clutter and change it to like every 25. So it'd be 0, 25, 50, 75, 100, and it would look cleaner that way. So these are the 3 options. I kind of go straight and change them when I create a new chart. Okay, you can also save a chart as a picture. So you right-click anywhere on the chart, and you get this pop-up right-click menu, and then click on Save as Picture. So this is an export feature in Microsoft Word, and I think in Excel also, that allows you to export your chart as an image, because journals will want you to submit the chart or the figure as an image file. And you get the option to save it in all of the popular formats, including TIF and PNG, which are, most of the time journals tend to request the TIF format. But you can, of course, also export in JPEG format. And you can see this is the chart in the background that I've exported, and you can see that the compression is reasonable. It's, the file sizes are not too big. They're not in megabytes. Which format do you think has the best resolution? Again, you can type your answer in the chat box. Which of these 6 formats has the best resolution? Like if you enlarge the picture, if you zoom in, it will not get blurry. People are saying BMP and PNG. BMP has the biggest file size, so that's tempting to say that. No, that you haven't gotten it right yet. TF, no, not the TIFF format either. SVG, yes, very good, Sana. SVG, although it's just 7 kilobytes, you can zoom it as much as you want and it will remain sharp because it is a vector format. So it's actually saving all the text, the boxes and the lines as as equations rather than as dots. And you can do as much zoom as you want. The text will remain sharp and the lines will remain sharp. Unfortunately, the journals still are not accepting SVG, so you cannot submit that, even though it has the smallest file size. But you can export SVG to Adobe Illustrator and then do some further work and export it at a very high DPI resolutions. So, like 1200 DPI if you want to. So that, is an option. But even then, the best resolution, there's only one default resolution that comes with Microsoft Word, which is, strangely enough, it's 330. So I checked the resolution of these pictures, and all of them were 330, including TIF and PNG and JPEG. And they were pretty reasonable. It's pretty good resolution. Most journals require at least 300, and some journals occasionally require 600. But it's still, this is very decent, and you don't have to do any further manipulation. Another thing I want to point out about Microsoft Excel and Word graphs is that the axis labels this text category 1, category 2 is not black. It is actually medium gray. And I think that is on purpose. Microsoft has done that so that the labels do not distract or attract too much attention compared to the graph itself. I think that's reasonable. But if you submit it to a journal, and I've seen it come out in print, sometimes it looks faded. So I actually could change it to black before submitting it. So it's another step that you may want to consider when you're using Microsoft Word to make graphs, is to change all the text into. You have to click on it individually and then change it to black. Another feature is to add data labels. Data labels can be in the bars themselves. They can be outside the bar, just outside on the right side. You can change the alignment. It's a nice way to show the actual numbers. It looks more accurate and more research-based. And then finally, you can also save your chart as a template. So, you can right-click anywhere on the chart and then click on Save as Template. So if you have, made a chart that you like the color combinations, the spacing between the bars, the fonts, everything is just right for what you normally use, just save it as a template. And then when you click on Insert Chart, click on Templates, okay? And you will see your template saved there. So it's a nice time-saving convenience feature that, you can use especially if you have, most of us, have for certain preferences. You don't have to do everything from scratch. You can just start with the template and then change the data itself. And then, you can also add chart elements, especially, I mentioned, I showed you best fit lines or regression lines. So if you have a scatter plot, Excel or Word will fit in a best fit linear regression line. It can also show you the equation and the R value. So you can do kind of like a regression showing the trend of the data. And this is from the the format tab in the ribbon. After you insert the chart, you click on the format, in the chart design tab, and then add chart element. And of course, you can also add error bars. So this is a typical, workflow for me. I will open Word and SPSS side by side, and I'll insert a chart, a blank chart in Microsoft Word, and then click on Edit Data, and then copy the data from SPSS into the spreadsheet for the chart. So this is how I use the means from SPSS to create a chart. And I just type it out. I don't even copy and paste, but you need to make sure that you don't make any errors when you're copying the data. And there's a new feature in SPSS. You can export a chart in SPSS as a Microsoft Graphics object. So right-click on the chart and then click Copy As, and then Microsoft Office Graphics object. And when you paste it in Word, it actually takes in, it's a proper Microsoft Word chart. So you can do all your editing. It's not an image, it's not a picture, it's an actual chart. You can change the settings. So this is a new feature in SPSS. But notice that the SPSS charts are not great either. They don't look very professional. SPSS also has an ability to save charts as templates, and it has some academic chart templates also that are slightly better. I don't know how many of you agree with that. Sometimes it's usually the pressure of deadlines. You have to submit something by the morning, and then you're working all night, and you find that your best productivity is around 2 a.m. And just some final words that professionals, data visualization professionals, do not use Excel or Word. Of course, they use ggplot2, which is can be integrated in R, and it uses a script or command line interface to create charts. So you have certain commands that you can you type in to create a chart, and you can adjust. So you save the script, and you can adjust the values to modify the chart. So if those of you who want to go into data visualization full time, you should explore ggplot2. The rest of us, I think, if you're making charts here and there, Microsoft Word is fine. And then there are data visualization courses. They probably will repeat a lot of what I've said, but it's nice to have a course on your certificate, so on your CV rather. So it may be a good idea to explore these free courses and get one done, because data visualization is an important skill in your skill set. Just search online for online course data visualization. And this book, there's a book on data graphing called Fundamentals of Data Visualization. It's available for free on the net. You can download a PDF, and there's a copy in the library as well. You can borrow the book from the library. It is fairly comprehensive and very readable. It's useful, shows you all the different types of charts and some things to do and not do. So I liked it, and for those of you who are kind of fascinated by this subject, it's worth reading. And just a bonus content from this book, I just wanted to show you. Okay, let me just pause with a quote from this book, and I kind of agree with this. I still find that true. I'm still learning, and sometimes, you read things and you reread it after a few months, and you get some new insights and a deeper understanding. Bonus content from this same book, about table formatting. So some of the rules for table formatting, I think you'll find this useful. Do not use vertical lines. Do not use horizontal line between data rows, except, there are this line just below the top row. So that's the title row and the rest of the table. Text columns should be left aligned, like this group column in the middle. Number columns should be right aligned. So this last column on the right side, the K values, and use the same number of decimal digits throughout. So they are all aligned. Columns containing single characters are centered. So for this left column, the experiment number column is centered. And then the header fields match the data. So the header, the top row, the experiment, this word experiment is centered. The word group is left aligned, and this K is right aligned. So it is matching the data. So I think this it gives you a nice clean look to the table. And then another thing I would add is using indents in the table to show grouping. So you can do tabs in a table, and the way to do that is to press Control Tab. Don't just press Tab. That will just move the cursor to the next cell. So to insert a tab within a table, you need to hold the Control key and then click, and then press the Tab key. So Control Tab. You can have these indents that show data relationships and hierarchy. And I also like to insert a blank line within tables to show some grouping and categories. It also gives you a more readable table. Okay, so we've covered both parts, sample graphs and Microsoft Graph features in Microsoft Word. I'm just going to do a small demo now. I'll see if that works. But this is in terms of content of the workshop and the basic message. You've already heard it. Let me try to set up the demo. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please go ahead. How to do import data into Word. I just type it in. You can copy and paste from, say, SPSS or whatever statistical program you're using, GraphPad, or even Excel. Just copy and paste. But in Word, remember, you don't put in the raw data. You will put in the average or the mean, not the actual data, but just the mean or whatever you're plotting. Unless it is a scatter plot, and then you would put in the raw data, the X and Y values. But most of the time, you're putting in the averages. Any other questions? Okay, remember I showed you this chart from Cell. It's one of the top journals, and we will try to recreate this chart. This is a screenshot image that I've taken for your reference. So I'm just gonna go again to Insert, and then click on Chart. Okay. I'm going to use a bar chart because it is horizontal, and use 100% stacked bar. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on the 100% bar chart. If at any point I'm not making sense, just put in a comment and I can stop and repeat the steps. And then I'll click OK. So we've got the sample chart with the dummy data. So this is just dummy data that Microsoft Word puts in, and you can change the data as you need it. Okay. So for now, I'm not going to change the dummy data because, this is just a demo, but, I would, maybe change some of the values here, like, just put in a 4 here. So you can see that. Since we have only 3 categories, I'm just going to drag this. I can hover my mouse over the lower right corner, and it changes shape into this diagonal arrow. And then I click and drag while keeping the mouse button pressed. So I just click and drag up and see if, change it from 4 categories to just 3 categories. So you can see at the bottom, the graph has changed from 4 categories to 3 categories. You can use the select data button to also change the number of categories. Okay, so we've changed the number of categories. I'm going to close the chart in Microsoft Word window. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Okay. And as I said, we don't want to use a legend. So I'm just going to click on the legend and hit the delete key. The legend is gone. We also don't use chart titles in research papers. So just going to click and then hit the delete key, and the title is gone. Also, we don't want to use grid lines. So just 1 click on the grid lines and hit the delete key, and the grid lines are gone. I want to change the colors. So I'll just click, 1 click on these boxes. It selects the entire series. So, but I want to show the panel on the right side. So I'll do a double click. And you can see that format data point panel has appeared. But now with a double click, only 1 is selected, not all 3 of the gray boxes. So I'm going to click outside and then click again back. May take a few clicks. Now all 3 are selected. And I'm going to click on this bucket with the paint falling down from it, and then click on the fill because I want to change the fill color. Click on solid, and then I'll try to copy the purple shade from the top figure. Okay. Similarly, for the middle boxes or the bars, it's a shade of gray. So I'm going to choose a gray. And the first set of boxes are white. So I'm going to change that to white. Okay. It's not a perfect color match. And then as you notice, these white boxes, they need an outline. So I'm going to click them back again, click on the bucket, and then click on the border option. It was automatic and showing no line, so I'll change it to a solid line and use a medium gray so it shows up. And you can see that the other boxes don't have an outline, so they're not matching. I'm going to add a border to them as well. Okay. Now we have the categories. We want to change the category labels. I'm going to go back and edit data. And change the data labels here. So category 1 is wild type. Category 2 is IR76B. And then IR25A. Okay, and then I'm going to close this again. And as you can see, this is on the left side. We want it on the right side. So I have this selected. I can go and click on Axis Options, and then these 3 bars on the right side. And you can see that the wild type is at the bottom currently by default. We want it should be at the top. So categories are in the reverse order. So now wild type is at the top. And then I also want horizontal axis crossing at the maximum category. Okay, so the horizontal axis otherwise comes at the top. Now you can see it's once you change the categories in reverse order, the horizontal axis is at the top. It should be at the bottom. Okay. We'll click on the horizontal axis now. And again, you have too many numbers here, 0, 10%, 20%. We want just 0, 50, and 100. So again, click on Axis Options, then click on these 3 bars. And then remember the major units, we want it's at 0.1, which means every 10%, there's a label, we'll change it to 0.5. Okay, so now that is matching. And then we also want some tick marks next to each label. So we'll add the tick marks. And we want it just outside, so pointing down from the axis, the horizontal line. So I hope you can appreciate that. I'll zoom in a little bit. And you can change the color also of the line itself. So let me make it a little bit darker. Currently, it is a shade of gray, like a medium gray. Let me make it dark gray and increase the size and thickness of it. So I hope you can appreciate that the horizontal axis has become darker and more bold. I can also change move the category labels. Um, yeah, now we've got the category labels are on the right side. And we can remove this line. We also can change the gap between them. So, you know, the gap width is about 150% of the bar. So if it is at 100%, it will match the bar width. Generally, I've seen in journals, they like to have the gaps smaller than the bar themselves. So we'll go with like 75. Okay, so, you know, and then I like to remove the outline of the chart itself. So click on just the edge of the chart. We are in, it says format chart area. Okay, and then for the border, I'll click on no line. So now the chart doesn't have a border. So, you know, and those are the steps that I follow. There's still some work that needs to be done. You know, yeah, but you know, it is kind of, you know, you can click and modify other things. You can add the mosquitoes label. So again, through the design tab and add chart element, axis titles, primary, horizontal. And here you have the axis title, one click, Control A to select all, and then just type mosquitoes %. Okay, and then you can change, remember, the color of these labels. It is a gray, shade of gray. You can change it to black. And the same for the axis label. It's already black, so that's okay. So, you know, that's how, you know, you would kind of modify a chart to make it, you know, the kind of the look that you want. This chart, they have fairly prominent lines. And again, you know, you can change all that through the line feature. It looks a bit too prominent for me, but I think it's they did it on purpose because it will be very small, and if the lines are not prominent, it may be difficult to read. So this is just one small figure in a multi-panel image. Okay, we have another chart that I wanted to show you. This is what is called a combo, and you know, this has both bar graphs, the bars, as well as a line graph superimposed on it. So it has two axes, one on the left side, which is showing prevalence, and one on the right side, the scale is showing incidence. So these are separate and different scales superimposed on the same graph. The way to do this is to use the combo option. So you go to, again, insert, chart, and this time you choose a combo. And in the combo, you can choose one clustered column, and the other one can be a line graph. So, you know, you have a combination of clustered column and a line graph superimposed on a single chart. You click OK. And you get your dummy data, and you can change the dummy data there. If you don't want 3 series, you just make it 2 series. Okay. And also remember, you can add error bars by clicking on design, add chart element, and error bars. So I click on more error bar options, and then you can choose one of these, or you can have a custom error bar from your data values. So you click on, you add the error, standard deviation as a separate column in your data. So you have like the error positive. Usually the positive and negative errors are the same, but sometimes it could be different or asymmetric. So error negative. And then you put in some, I'll put in some dummy values, just put 1s for now. But if your statistics program gives you the standard deviations, you should put them in here. And then I'll put on specify value. So add more error bar options. And now, I can select the error bar values themselves. So custom so the positive error values, these are my positive error values, and the negative error values from the negative error values. So these are like the standard deviations from the data output. And now you can see that the error bars are displaying. And if I change the error, like say, I increase it to 2, you can see that it will immediately increase. So you can see the first one, the error bar has increased to 2. If I change it to 0.5, it will decrease. So in a nutshell, that's that's how you would add the error bars or any other options. Okay, so we come to the end of the workshop. I'm just going to conclude with some take-home messages. Use Microsoft Word instead of Excel. Look at recent graphs in articles from the target journal. You want to match their style. Reduce clutter, so grid lines, borders. Aim for a consistent look. Use sans serif fonts. Use subdued color scheme. Avoid 3D effect, pie charts, and non-zero axes. And then, leave your image aside for a few days and work on it again, show it to a friend, print it out, compare with the, the journal style. That's it for today. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you can take some of this to improve your work. Take care, and inshallah, I'll see you next time. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the chat.
Thank you.